It's a unbelievable moment. All this anti-woke stuff is just anti-black, period, full stop. All the CRT, ESG, DEI stuff, that's all this is. It's this great purge, and it's happening in real time, and I'm sitting here, and I feel like, you know, luckily I'm governor, but like we're not doing enough. Right. We're not calling this out. We're not drawing a line here. And again, it's not about Democrats or Republicans. It's about who we
right and
are,
wrong.
Man. Yeah, right and goddamn wrong. Daylight and dark night.
Homelessness. Almost 30% of Californians are homeless on any given night. 30%. That is the largest margin by far.
30%?
I think it's 28. So close to 30% of their population is homeless on any given night.
Does that just mean they like go out to dinner and they're not at home?
Maybe.
Oh, yes. Then you have been hanging around the Senate button. Come on in. There he is. Oh, yeah, and the senator came too. Everybody knows Baby Dog's story, right?
No pueden encarcelarnos a todas. No pueden encarcelarnos a todas. No pueden encarcelarnos a todas. Imprison us all day. Hey. Woo! Okay. I think I did okay. You did amazing. Yes. Woo. You get an A. I don't give grades though. We just go on vibes, and the vibes were immaculate.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
I don't understand why they like him so much, because he clearly don't like them. Because when 42 million people, and I know some of them had to be MAGA, when they needed to line up to get their EBT, and it wasn't nothing there, he didn't care. So, you know, I think that people need to get back to prioritizing themselves and their families and their future instead of being dragged to hell by this dude who obviously has them in a cult.
If you agree with this statement, then stand up and show your support. The first duty of the American government is to protect American citizens, not illegal aliens.
Let's do some updates about Israel and Iran and potentially the United States. On one side is the Lindsey Graham, John Bolton types, where they are actively calling for regime change. Here is Lindsey Graham. This is just lunacy. This kind of analysis is not helpful. This kind of approach, this kind of argument, it has nothing to do with nuclear weapons at this point. This is now that we want to go all in and take out the regime. It's time for us to close the chapter on the Iranian Ayatollah and his henchmen and start a new chapter in the Middle East. And that sounds good, doesn't it? But what have we learned when it comes to wars, and especially wars in the Middle East? What you draw up on a whiteboard rarely happens. What you think theoretically is going to occur, there might be unintended and unforeseen consequences, especially when you're talking about a country 2.5 times the size of Texas. It has 90 million people and was an ancient and great power with well over a dozen ethnic groups. You have underground Christians. You don't really have many Jews left in Persia. But also you have secular younger Persians. Who's going to run the country exactly, Lindsey Graham? This sounds like Hillary Rodham Clinton in Libya. So I'm pointing to the first extreme right now, the neoconservative extreme. The we must go take off the head of the snake right now. Play cut 285.
Be all in, President Trump, in helping Israel eliminate the nuclear threat. If we need to provide bombs to Israel, provide bombs. If we need to fly planes with Israel, do joint operations. But here's the bigger question. Wouldn't the world be better off if the Ayatollahs went away and replaced by something better? Wouldn't Iran be better off? It's time to close the chapter on the Iranian Ayatollah and his henchmen. Let's close that chapter soon and start a new chapter in the Mideast, one of tolerance, hope, and peace.
Okay, that sounds good, but that's pathologically insane. I'm sorry, it is. How do you know it's going to be better? Yeah, the Ayatollah is awful, but maybe he's one of the few guys that can keep that country together and not have a 90 million person civil war. Lindsey Graham is so consistently out of his mind, it's hard to even comprehend. Iran is hugely diverse. It is a massive country. Do the people agitating for war even know that? Because be clear, regime change is war. Just to understand, regime change is not like changing the head coach at the Chicago Bears. It's not how it works. It's not like a clean transfer. Typically in the Mideast, it's very messy, creates a quagmire, and then there is civil war. Do you understand how large Iran is? It's massive. It's a very big country. It's mountainous. It makes Afghanistan and Iraq look like a cakewalk. Just look at this beast of a country with all the different regions, all the different dialects, if we could put that up on screen. And then you have a major refugee concern of Mohammedans that will come to Europe and endanger more Christians and Jews, and Mohammedans that will come to America. No, that is wrong. So that is one extreme. The other extreme is one that I have deep respect and reverence for, because I actually think if we had that other extreme, we would not have invaded Iraq. This other extreme is philosophically important. It's important to consider, and that's the Ron Paul extreme. And I love Ron Paul. Ron Paul is awesome. I would have Ron Paul on the show regularly. He is a hero because Ron Paul had the courage to challenge old sacred cows of the Republican Party. He made people defend the indefensible. But the Ron Paul perspective is strictly isolationist. I actually agree with a lot of this other extreme, a lot. I think it's healthy to have this other extreme more than the neoconservative extreme, because this extreme has been underrepresented in the public dialogue and discourse the last 20 years. So you have these two extremes. I honestly don't think the neoconservative extreme needs to be represented philosophically anymore. It's uninteresting to me. They've done a mess of Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, the entire Middle East, Ukraine. We know what the neoconservatives believe. I do think hearing out, and honestly, I agree with a lot of the more, I think isolationist is used as a pejorative, but let's just say restrained community. Take out the Ayatollah. Resist that temptation. That's not prudence. That's not self-control. That's something else talking. That's a zeal. And that very same zeal got us involved in a pile of garbage in Iraq. It all felt good with shock and awe in March of 2003. We're unstoppable. We're going to take Iraq in a weekend. Turns out, it didn't work that way. A lot of people died. A lot of Americans died unnecessarily.
In subjecting our foreign policy to Israeli foreign policy, I have real issue with that. I said it before. I said it weeks ago on your show. Not that this should not be the path forward, and the president's chosen to do it. I just wonder who pressured him that much to do it this way.
You are living in the most dangerous time in American history.
We won't take a single back step.
Former professional basketball player is now the Republican Party's choice.
Can you imagine Royce White, the U.S. Senator?
White won the endorsement on May 18th with 67% of the vote.
There's nothing that guarantees we win, but I guarantee you if we lose, we will die. We have to thread a needle here. We've pushed our culture. We've pushed this country to a place where the only answer is to thread a needle. There are no easy answers. There are no easy questions. All of those days are behind us. We've pushed this country. We've pushed our people to a place where the only path forward involves threading a needle. When I say and people say that the future of this nation, the future of this republic rests upon the edge of a blade, it's not metaphorical. I mean, it is metaphorical, but it's really not. See, we have a convergence. There's a convergence of a number of things right now in our country, in our society. You have the convergence of political and civil unrest, discontent with the establishment, like I said here at the beginning of this show. You have the rise of technology, the unfettered and unlimited advancement of technology. You have ancient religious hostility and tension. And you have the biological impulse of mankind to seek the path of least resistance, to do what is most efficient in order to survive, in order to prosper. You have a convergence of these kinds of things, and at the point where they meet, humanity gets to make a choice. We get to make a decision. How do we go forward? What's the right path? What's the right action? What's the right way to go about things? What's the right way to navigate the human existence? Existential questions for humanity are up on the bar, are up on the table. And I just caution people. So I look out and I get as animated as anybody. But I'm typically animated when everybody else is calm, and then when everybody else seems to I'm animated when everybody else seems too calm, and when everybody seems too animated, I try and bring calm. I try to bring the calm. There is a balance that we have to strike. I guess as an athlete, I'm always conscious of being on balance. You know, I use these sports analogies all the time, but I think there's great correlation between sports and the things we love and revere about elite athletes. Say, since the last time we were on, Jack Hughes scored an epic game-winning goal to bring the gold medal back to USA men's hockey and to bring it back for our country at the Olympics there. Just a moxie and grit and toughness that Jack Hughes showed, and a love of country that we all like to see in victory from Team USA, the men's hockey team, after winning the gold medal. But there is a toughness and a grit that's imbued in the hockey players that this country has lost. We've lost it in our culture. I've said it many times over the last couple of weeks. For some strange reason, American hockey has survived the pussification of American culture. And praise be to God. Emblematic moments of what Americanism is really all about, what it's supposed to be about. And I know the men's hockey team said, we don't want it to be political, but it's political, and they knew it. Draping yourself in that flag is a stark contrast to what we see coming from some of the other athletes who find themselves more of the left-leaning political variety. Politics aside, there's just a tough and a gritness that transcends partisan views, partisan politics, party politics. There's a toughness and a grit and a sort of heroism. The traits, the character traits that embody a heroic person. In America right now, we have choices to make, tough choices about how we go forward. None of the answers are going to be easy. None of it's going to feel good. None of it's going to be convenient. None of it's going to go off without a hitch. All of it's going to be painful to an extent. The best we can hope for is a few shining moments like Jack Hughes scoring the game-winning goal there against the Canadians, who have all but given their country over to communists as well. The rest of it's going to be painful. And we have to be ready for that. We have to be okay with that. Some of these controversial conversations we're going to have about sacred cows, let's say, in the Republican Party, our foreign policy, our entire geopolitical philosophy. Tough conversation. What does it really mean to be America first? What does the MAGA movement really stand for? Which pieces of our foreign policy need to stay intact and which pieces of our foreign policy need to be abandoned? These are tough questions with no easy answers, and nobody's going to like the results. And it puts the president of the United States in a very difficult position because in one sense, you want to be a leader and you want to lead people based on what's right and what's true. But in another sense, we have a system of government, a framework, a political framework that prioritizes the will of the people. And so just as important as any one man's point of view on things is the perception of the people, the perception of things. And we live in a reality that is increasingly distorted, where perception is distorted by design in some cases of our own volition and free will, and in some cases of our own desire to scapegoat and circumvent the accountability of being citizens and being individuals. There are a lot of moving parts. Sure, our government lies to us all the time. Sure, our government has lied to us many times in the past. Sure, there are psychological operations and propaganda being waged right before our very eyes. Absolutely. In some cases, we're just lying to ourselves. In some cases, you get a bit of both. And those are the real dangerous moments. And I remind people of Yuri Benzimov, who was a former KGB, KGB agent. And that, epic, very insightful interview. I think it was in the 1970s, maybe it was in the 80s, where he had turned, basically as a double agent and started to work with America. And he kind of laid out the framework, the strategy, the agenda, the way that color revolutions really work. And he talked about psychological subversion, ideological subversion, and how ideological and psychological subversion work. I've played the clip many times on the podcast, and you can go find it very easily. But he talked about the success of psychological subversion being that the people of the enemy country no longer can decipher what's true from what's false, what's real from what's fake. to the degree that you can actually show a person the facts and they'll still deny the reality. He puts a cherry on top by saying it's not until he ends up at the gulag in the concentration camp and he gets a military boot to his butt, a military boot crushes his balls, that he realizes that this is actually real. Then he understands, once he's finally in the camp and the military boot is crushing his ball sack, then he understands, whoa, this is real. Colorful, harsh, but very real, and very real for us here today in this country. And what's the granddaddy of them all? The granddaddy of them all isn't about Israel or Iran. It isn't about Christians and Muslims or Jews, America first, or the globalists. All of those things are important. And if there is a dividing line, I would say the necessary dividing line are the nationalists and patriots versus the globalists. Absolutely, because there has to be a value to citizenship and the fundamental mechanism of the nation state, nationhood. National pride, national honor, sacred honor. Those things have to be a priority, or you don't have a country, number one, but you also lose your culture. And that's dangerous too. So that's a necessary distinction to make. That's an important divide to acknowledge. But the real danger on the horizon is technology. and the sort of net result of technology as a whole on mankind, on us as a species, on our country, on our culture, on our people as a collective, but even on an individual basis. Technology is the real threat that we face. And right now, we have no clue. We have no clue what technology has really done to us psychologically and culturally. We certainly don't have any clue what it's doing politically. We've given over social media, which has become the greatest pastime in the history of human civilization. We've given those mediums over to the artificial intelligence and the algorithms to which we understand very little about in the grand scheme of things. And we've done it sort of, unabashedly. A lack of limits, a lack of boundaries, a lack of restrictions on the proliferation of social media and these algorithms and by way of artificial intelligence. And we have no clue what tricks artificial intelligence is playing on us in the long game. If you think that a culture, a civilization like the Chinese, who have, again, a much older civilization than ours, has a better understanding of the long game, has more patience and more discipline, which I think they do. Imagine artificial intelligence. Part of the dark horror sci-fi scenario that we don't give enough credit to is artificial intelligence is able to run the simulations at a speed with which we can't possibly comprehend well out into the future beyond the lifespan of any of us who are living today. And for that reason alone, we should have been slow to implement artificial intelligence the way that we have, especially the way that we have throughout social media. We have no clue. We have no clue what psychological impacts artificial intelligence is having on us right now as a people, as a culture, as a country, as a species. We have no clue. We have a clue, and in some ways you can see the results. People are losing their minds. So I guess we do have a clue. There's an indication of what it's doing. But we can't possibly understand the gravity of it, the full scope of it. And we're seeing it play out in real time where we've lost all sense of pace in this country. Let's just talk about our country. We've lost all sense of pace. You could use the phrase, you learn how to pace a shower, right? You don't want to be too hot. You don't want to be too cold, unless you want it to be too hot or cold. That's a different deal. But you want to find a happy medium. You want to find a temperature that's comfortable, that feels good. Learn how to pace a shower. In sports, we say the same thing. In basketball, you talk about players who are high level, very elite basketball players. They usually have great pace, we call it. They have great tempo. They navigate the court, and they navigate the game. They navigate the other players with great pace. It's almost, what Bruce Lee used to refer to as the flow state. Same thing in basketball. There's a pace to elite players in the way that they play. It's the same thing in a society, the same thing in politics, same thing in a culture, same thing for us individually and collectively. We've lost our sense of pace. Everything's scalding hot or it's freezing cold. And then in the milquetoast moderate middle, you get these lukewarm folks who you can't trust any more than you can the people on the extremes. And therein lies the crisis of leadership. It's not even a crisis of the leaders. It's the need for the leaders to respond to a culture that is decadent. That's where the real crisis is. The need for leaders to respond to a culture that is decadent. Our leaders are a reflection of us. Because any good leader has to, in some sense, bend to the will of the people. And if the will of the people is corrupt and wicked, you can rest assured that a leader is going to have a tough time guiding you in a way that's not in alignment with where you really want to go deep down. And we have to ask ourselves, and it seems that the answer is all but clear. The way that we've accepted the rise of technology and how out of control it appears that it is already It seems that we've chosen our path. Christianity gives you a repudiation of that outcome, of that inevitability. Christianity emphasizes the free will versus predetermination, saying, hey, yeah, you may have chosen a path, but you can course correct. There's such a thing as repentance and redemption and forgiveness. There's such a thing as being a watchman on the wall, as it says in Ezekiel 3:16, a watchman on the wall who sounds the alarm when things aren't going right. Those things exist as well. That option exists as well. The question is, will we choose it? Right now, even in this conversation with us going to war with Iran, I find very little temperance of reaction. Blah, 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 blah. I mean, it's just like, calm down for a second. Let's talk about this. Let's walk through this logically, just piece by piece. Let's just pull it apart piece by piece. I did it last night on InfoWars, and I'm going to try and do a little bit of it here, a more crude version, the Cliff Notes. But essentially, we have layers of things that are unfolding simultaneously. Let's go to the most local, that which is most approximate to us, which is the proper orientation of Christian faith, Christian participation, and Christian charity. That which is most local, and then it expands out from there. St. Thomas, and when I say local, I mean local as in here, in your spirit, within you. Just talk about anything else, what's inside. That is what is most local to any living human being, what's inside of you. Okay, now you have your home, your family, your immediate everyday life, the community that you come into contact with on a daily basis. And then you have your role as a citizen for a greater jurisdiction, your city, your state, and ultimately as a part of a country, a nation. Let's go to what's most local. What are the priorities? What are my priorities? God, family, country. Nothing wrong with it. God, family, country. And we should say that with pride. Those are my priorities. God, family, country, in that order. The relationship with God is faith. The relationship with family is protection and provision. The relationship with country is, what are my duties as a citizen? What are my civic duties? What can I do for my country? What can I demand from my government, from my elected officials? How do I participate in the political process? For me, I'm running for United States Senator, the United States Senate, to be a United States Senator, to try and represent the people in a government that I believe is captured. And we should bring that critique, and we should bring it, with great passion, in some cases, fury, commitment. Ask questions of your government. Always. Voice your opinion. But make sure your opinions are well informed. It's part of that civic duty. As a citizen right now, my top priority politically is I'm running for office to represent the people, but it's also to educate the people so that the will of the people reflects something that's closer to the truth and closer to righteousness. The truth of our political situation today, and maybe this should be first and foremost on anybody's list, I would say it's first and foremost on my list of political priorities. Our elections aren't secure, and everybody knows it. That's the elephant in the room. Our elections aren't secure, and everybody knows it. Our elections need to be secured. Put a pin in that. Let's go to the global. Work our way back. This country is in an asymmetrical war with the Chinese Communist Party, with China. America and China are on a collision course. We've already begun to collide. The war there in Iran is not really a war with Iran, and we all know that as well. The war with Iran is a war with an access of an alliance between the Iranians, the Russians, the Chinese, and North Korea. Whatever other proxies and allies they have all across the country. I mean, all across the world, all across our country as well. Some sense. But there's a full-blown political war unfolding at a global scale. It's starting to go kinetic. It's been going kinetic in little pockets for a while. The kinetic part is kicking up. In that consideration, I've said many times, I'm as much of a China hawk as there is. There may be a time in place in the future where we fight a full-blown kinetic war with China, with the CCP. And I don't know if we're ready for it. Some people say we aren't. Some people say we are. Only time will tell. Hopefully we can avert war. It certainly seems that the Chinese position is to watch, to be stable, to be steady, to be a manufacturing superpower, to out-manufacture us. Neocolonialism from a more business end of things versus war, and that they'll outplay us in that as well. And their geographical strategic position of the entire Eurasian landmass, and them being able to walk to the natural resources they need where we have to sail or fly. Back to Mackinder's land theory. Geographical pivot of history, if you need a quick history lesson on that. Geographical pivot of history. Halford John Mackinder, British academic, predicted these times, predicted these things. Warfare is greatly consequential around geography. There's another great book, The Revenge of Geography. People should read it. We're in an asymmetrical war with China. And because we're in an asymmetrical war, all these other little proxy wars, like the one there in Iran, have their relevance, have their importance. And I'm not saying they shouldn't be a priority at all. Maybe they should. Maybe we should go further. Maybe the time to strike Beijing, is now. I don't know. I can only tell you what I think. Here's what I think. I think the Chinese believe they're playing a much longer game than us, and that the instability of American leadership, the waxing and waning, the ebbs and flows of American politics will in the end be a strategic advantage for them. That they can consolidate the will, or let's say, if not, the consensus of the Chinese people long enough to outlast America's empire, to watch America's empire collapse from within. And President Xi is demonstrating that. He rules by authoritarian means. He rules by a totalitarian means, by a full-blown surveillance state and an infringement in freedoms that we here in America would just reject on face value. At least we would reject them in theory. How it actually plays out, I'd say our NSA is surveilling us just as much as the CCP is surveilling the Chinese, but that's a technicality. Public-facing, the CCP is not shy about their surveillance or their infringement of what we in America would call our God-given inalienable rights. Why? They don't believe in God. They don't really believe in inalienable rights, and that is the diametric opposition between our framework of government and having a country or citizenship and the Chinese, the Chinese Communist Party and the Chinese culture. They also believe that anybody who's not Chinese or anybody who's not Han Chinese is subhuman. They are an explicitly ethno-national culture. They are an explicitly ethno-national regime and empire. And that gives them a strategic advantage on us as well. Like it or not, hate it or love it, think it moral or immoral, in the material world, in the material physical world, it gives them a strategic advantage on us in the long run. Why? They have a sense of purpose and meaning, even if it's driven by something that we reject politically, culturally, spiritually. There have been many, many civilizations, cultures, nations, kingdoms, people in history that we would regard as having the moral high ground, the moral and ethical high ground over an opposing kingdom or an enemy, and they still met their demise. That's the story of Greece and Troy. Now, there's some argument in there, but essentially, and there's some, and this is how morality works. This is what they would call in the financial sector moral hazard. I mean, there are these little things that you may pay a penalty for or have a karma for that you didn't realize would be as consequential as they ended up being. And the story of Helen of Troy, you had the young you had the young Trojan prince. You had the young Prince of Troy who was bedding the queen of Menelaus, one of the Greek kings of the city-state, one of the kings of the Greek city-states, Menelaus. You had the young Trojan prince secretly bedding the wife of one of the Greek kings. And that's what kicked off the war. Agamemnon's interest in the war was his own expansion of power within Greece, but also to encroach on the territory of Troy as well. There had been a long-standing kingdom with its own sovereignty and its own ability to maintain its sovereignty and its culture and its heritage and its history and so on and so forth. So Agamemnon's interests weren't on the up and up. It wasn't just about revenge or the honor of his brother Menelaus. He had his own interests. And then you get the other Trojan prince who ends up fighting Achilles in the open battlefield, and Achilles has his own interest in the thing. He wants glory. He wants his name to last on and live throughout the ages. That's his driving motivation for being in the war. You have Odysseus. You have all these, historical figures involved in this one conflict, but they all have their own stories and subplots and their own interest in the thing. And my point in saying all of that is to give you an example that, yes, we're on a collision course with China. Just because we have the moral high ground in our mind doesn't mean we're going to win. There is a fight to find and maintain the moral high ground for us as individuals, and then for us as a nation and as a culture. And then there's the fight to apply or implement a winning strategy so that our moral high ground is reflected on the other side of the conflict. Part of the same story, but two very different things. Two very different things in the same story. There's nothing that says because we have the moral and ethical high ground over the CCP and their way of life that guarantees us victory. That's not how American history reads. That's not how Western civilization history reads. That's not how world history reads. That's not how history reads in the Bible. That's not how history reads. So we're in a dogfight. And when the president makes a decision like clipping the Iranian regime and maybe shifting the power balance by cutting the Chinese off from oil that they need, and they really do need the oil from Iran. There's huge strain on the Chinese economy and the trade routes because of what's going on there in the Middle East. We can't say there is no strategic relevance to that move. At the same time, the question becomes, what is the hierarchy of priority? And this has become the beating heart of the MAGA movement and America First movement. The question becomes, what is the hierarchy of priority? In basketball, let's say, when a shot goes up, what's the first priority? Anybody who's ever played basketball knows the answer. You find a man and you put a body on him. You box him out. That's the first priority when a shot goes up in your own defense, every time. Unless you're guarding the ball. If you're guarding the ball, the first priority is to get a hand in his face and try and make that shot tougher. Everybody else, the first priority is to put a body on somebody, try and box out so you can get a rebound. Because you can't run the floor. You can't go down on offense and try and score unless you rebound. So rebounding becomes one of the highest priorities in the game of basketball, which is why people who rebound well and maybe don't do much of anything else good get paid a lot of money to play the game, because rebounding becomes essential to the transition of the game between defense to offense. There are three stages of of basketball. There's offense, defense, and transition. You can't get in transition and go from defense to offense unless you can rebound. That's why Dennis Rodman was so important to the success of the Chicago Bulls as they went on that historic run. One of the best rebounders of all time. Crazy, somebody who people regard as, having some loose screws. Entertaining, fun to watch. But the thing that made him special is you could see that he would go through a brick wall. He would chew glass. He would eat glass to get a rebound. Actually, they refer to rebounding as, eating glass, being on the glass, being on the backboard. He would crawl over glass to get a rebound. And my point in bringing up Dennis Rodman, again, another example of an athlete that has a moxie and a grit, had a moxie and a grit that we've lost in this country. We've lost it in our sports for sure as well, but we've lost it as a culture. We don't remember the Dennis Rodmans and what made them so special, despite all of our disagreements and judgments about his life and his character, the way he dressed, and all of the crazy stuff that he did. We don't value we don't properly identify and value those things and apply them to the political. What are the priorities? The priority of this country right now has to be our own elections aren't secure. Our own elections aren't secure, and that's an issue. That's a fundamental issue. It's a transgression against our nation, the fabric of our nation, and the value of our citizenship, that our elections aren't secure. So for me, and this is just for me, I have a very hard time accepting that any of these foreign affairs should take priority over the security of our elections for two reasons. One, it's a non-starter from the outset. Again, back to that order of charity and that order of priority from a Christian lens, that which is most local to me. No matter how global technology and politics have become, the Christian orientation is still that which is most local to me, is the priority. The priority of the familial structure. It's the priority of my own individual existence, spiritual existence, and then whatever that manifests in the material and physical world, it's the proper orientation of charity, that which is most local to me. That's the proper orientation of Christian charity, that which is most local to me. Myself, my family, my immediate community, my greater municipality being a city or town, and then my state as a part of a collective nation, a republic. That which is most local to me. In that which is most local to me, our elections have to take priority. The security of our elections have to take priority over any foreign affairs, especially when those foreign affairs don't seem to be an imminent threat. The CCP is surely an imminent threat, and if you want to connect Iran as a part of the Iron Triangle of China, Russia, Iran, and, North Korea, as I just count as China as well. But if you want to connect Iran to that Iron Triangle and that broader geopolitical conflict and ensuing kinetic conflict, inevitable kinetic conflict, then the threat of the CCP is imminent. But the reason it's imminent is not because of religious extremists in Tehran. The reason it's imminent is because of our concession to Chinese supply chains here in America. And in all fairness to President Trump, he is doing as much as he can possibly do to reorient the entire global economy to a more America first and America-centric position. And nobody can deny that. He's done more than any president in my lifetime by a country mile, by 10 country miles, 100 country miles. He's done more than anything of any president in my lifetime. He's done more than any president in my lifetime to reorient the global economy and our own economy to a more America first and America centric position. If you deny that, you're just being you're being goofy. You're lying. You're being dishonest. But a rightful question is, to what degree can he push the envelope? What degree should he push the envelope? And he's not perfect. Hell, I'm not perfect. I can't be perfect. Nobody's perfect. There's only one perfect man. His name was Jesus Christ. We all know that. It's improper for us to demand perfection from our leaders. We can hold them to a standard. We can hold them to their word, but it's improper. It's also a disorientation of Christian faith to hold people to a perfect standard when we know there's only one perfect man who ever walked the earth. It's actually heretical. When we project our own spiritual angst onto one individual, one man who is not Jesus Christ, and we ask him to be perfect, it's heretical. That's a heresy. So I go into it holding the line here and keeping this Trump 2024 box of cereal on my broadcast desk here. I go into it knowing he's not going to be perfect. He can't be. And because of that fact, every once in a while, I may have to tap him on the shoulder as a rising voice in the movement and say, here's my opinion. Maybe you should think about this. You might be getting this wrong. And there's two schools of thought here. Look, everybody should be able to agree. There are a lot of people there in the Middle East, a lot of people in these Arab countries, a lot of Muslims who are asking for a fight, who say they want to fight. They have an arrogance about them. Let's be honest. It's not all Muslims. Anybody who says all or everyone is probably not anchored in a good faith discussion. And I don't like when people do that. Hell, we have such a disoriented fear of Islam. And I'll talk about that in a moment as we go into this Iran piece. But we have such a disoriented fear of Islam. There are people who look at me and have a beard and go, I'm not voting for anybody with a beard. You look like a Muslim. Wait a second. Jesus Christ had a beard. Are you sure you're Christian? Even the fact that we want our politicians clean shaven says something about the strain between our Christian heritage all the way back to the old country and where we are today. And I say it again, give me the first 100 rednecks and MAGA hats versus the first 100 PhDs or Wall Street elites every day of the week and 3 times on Sunday. Give me the first 100 rednecks and MAGA hats. Give me the first 100 rednecks wearing a MAGA hat versus the first 100 PhDs or Wall Street elites any day of the week and twice on Sundays. But there is an improper disorientation in our fear of Islam. I gave you the example. I'm Christian. And the one and only Messiah was a Christian man and he wore a beard. So we've kind of let the Muslims co-opt that part of our own scripture, I would say. Point being, it's not all Muslims, but there are a lot of Muslims who sort of openly, unabashedly call for death to this country. They do it in a pompous, arrogant way, like, they're ready to die. They're ready for a fight. There's an arrogance. And part of that arrogance, that arrogance and that pride and that confidence is that they are connected. They each one of them view themselves as the connective tissue of a religious practice and faith that they understand has a political agenda, and each one of them at some level understand the perpetual nature of that agenda. That killing the Ayatollah isn't going to kill Islam. It may set Islam back, it may set Iran back, but it's not going to kill Islam. The fight that Islam is waging is another fight of patience and over a long iteration of time. It's a spiritual fight, or let's say it's a fight of spiritual and religious organization. A holy war. And they believe they're going to win. And right now they are winning. There are a lot of Muslims who say death to America. There are a lot of Muslims who maybe even casually believe in an idea like death to America. There are a lot of Muslims that live in this country who believe in the idea death to America. So on principle, I don't lose sleep. I don't shed a tear when any of these, radical extremists who yell death to America meet their end. I just don't feel bad for them. There are rules. There are rules to the game, as they say. One of the rules to the game is if you ask for a fight long enough, if you knock on the devil's door long enough, somebody answers you. You get hit in the mouth. You get a fight. You get a conflict. Sometimes you get more of a fight than you bargained for. Sometimes you write a check that your rear end can't cash. Sometimes you sell wolf tickets and the other person calls your bluff. Sometimes you're fortunate enough to take an ass whooping that you didn't expect or you didn't bargain for and come back the next day and learn from it. Sometimes it kills you. Sometimes it kills you. I think the Ayatollah just learned the hard way. Sometimes the things you say can kill you. And he believed in martyrdom. He believed that giving his life for his faith and his way of his way of the world is righteous. And although I disagree with the theology and I disagree with his hatred of this country or his entire worldview or construction of the dynamic between Christians and Muslims or the West and the Middle East or whatever else, as much as I disagree, fundamentally reject the Ayatollah's ideology and worldview and faith, I respect his willingness to die for what he believes in. And it's a cautionary tale because we are in an asymmetric war with the CCP. We are in a sort of holy or religious war with Islam. And we are in a political war right here at home. And I question how much we have the same resolve and willingness to sacrifice ourselves for what we believe in that the Ayatollah showed. So I don't lose any sleep. I don't shed a tear that the Ayatollah is dead. I don't shed a tear for any of these radical, Islamic extremists who yell death to America. Death to our country. You watch your fucking mouth. You watch your fucking mouth when you talk about this country. But with all that being said, priorities. Our own elections aren't secure. Our own elections aren't secure. Our own political leaders don't show 1/100th of the resolve to even be inconvenienced, let alone lay their life down for what they say they believe in. They don't show 1/100th of the resolve of an Ayatollah or a Xi Jinping or Vladimir Putin or a Kim Jong-un about the things they say they believe in. They don't show 1/100th of that resolve, and that's where our real cultural crisis lands for us in this country. Now, President Trump was obviously willing to lay his life down. He was indicted. He was sued. He was smeared and drugged through the media, drugged through the mud. They tried to shoot him on multiple occasions. He survived it. He's earned the right. He's earned the right to say he's willing to give his life for what he believes in. The rest of us have to raise our game to that level. I said this on the morning show today, that there's a strong correlation between President Trump and Michael Jordan. The correlation is that President Trump, as a personality, his political talent, has changed and elevated the entire game of politics. Changed and elevated. Whether you like him, dislike him, hate him, love him, agree, disagree, doesn't quite matter. The fundamental fact is that President Trump's personality and his talent in politics has fundamentally changed and elevated politics in this country. It's the same thing as Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan was so talented, he was so good, he was so skilled. Eventually, he ran into a brick wall. He was constrained by the culture and even the rules of the game of basketball at that time, the NBA. So he had a little bit of help from the institutions because he was so talented. He was such a personality, and he had so much talent that he actually changed the game of basketball. He changed it from a fan standpoint. He changed it from a skill standpoint. He changed the play, but he also changed the rules. The rules were changed because Michael Jordan was so entertaining, the NBA saw it as commercially advantageous to stop letting the Detroit Pistons beat him up. That they were going to be a little bit quicker with the whistles. A little bit quicker with the whistles, so that the Detroit Pistons, the bad boys there in Detroit, couldn't beat up the golden calf. And I don't say that to mean that Michael Jordan in sports is sacrilegious, although I do think, no pun intended, there is a real element of sacrilege to what we've done to sports. But you understand my point. My point is that there's a lot of correlation between what President Trump has done to the game of politics and what Michael Jordan did to the game of basketball. And that personalities can transcend the status quo. It can elevate and change the status quo. But that doesn't mean you win in the end. Look what's happened to the NBA in post Jordan. It's become soft. It's become weak. It's become a part of a woke culture that doesn't reward discipline and elite skill or mastery, that concedes that everybody should be equal. We have a culture in America that adores Michael Jordan so much. He's built $1 billion fortune just from selling his own sneaker with his own name on it, but yet we want people to be equal, everybody to be equal. We want equity. We want equality of outcome. We want social equity. But we adore Michael Jordan. These are contradictions, philosophical contradictions that cannot stand if we hope to hold this nation, to hold this republic. If we hope to be around 100 or 200 or 500 years from now to tell the tale. Not lost in the eternal house of history. These contradictions can't stand. And I bring sports up all the time for a reason. It lends great insight to the cultural schism that we have here in this country. A perfect example. We have a country with a sports culture that is so prosperous. One man, greatest basketball player of all time, was able to build $1 billion fortune by selling a sneaker with his name on it. Yet, we have conceded, we have made an unspoken agreement, a woke agreement, that we believe in some strange stretch of the imagination that everybody's equal. Everybody's not equal. Everybody's equal in the eyes of God. But even that's a little bit of even that's a little bit of a story. Because we're not all equal. Because all sin isn't equal. And all genuineness of forgiveness and repentance isn't equal. So the equality of things, is even a slippery slope. And we're talking about, we got to thread a needle here. And some of these ideas, some of these slogans and these catchphrases and things that we say, without really thinking about the practical application are holding us back. Men are created equal. That's what our founding fathers were brilliant to include in our founding documents. Men are created equal. Doesn't mean they die equal. Doesn't mean they live equal. Men are created equal. All men are created equal. Doesn't mean they live equal. Doesn't mean they die equal. Certainly, they're not equal in eternity for us Christians. President Trump can't be perfect. He transcended American politics. He transcended global politics. His personality and his talent transcended global politics. And for that, we should be grateful. And in fact, I've said before on the show, I think we express a deep lack of gratitude. With that being said, we also have to man the ramparts and tell President Trump, hey, wait a second, promises made, promises kept. If we don't secure these elections, it's not going to be us. It's not going to only be us that is harmed by it. It's going to be you too. It's going to be all of us. And time will tell. Maybe he's actually going to hold the line in securing these elections in 2026. But, my honest assessment is we've already burned a lot of daylight on that front because Texas is already voting. They're in the thick of their election season. And where is the guarantee of election security? Where is the guarantee of election security? Do we trust Greg Abbott? Why do we trust Governor Abbott? No disrespect to you, sir, but why should I trust you? If Islam is really as radical as everybody is trying to tell me on Fox News, as Mark Levin and all the other neoconservative Israel firsters are trying to tell me that Islam is the great evil that we have to beat back and defeat, why has Governor Abbott allowed the proliferation of mosques in Texas under his governorship? Because we want to be polite, because we want to play by the rules. If it's a matter of national security in the Middle East, in Iran, then certainly it's a matter of national security there in Texas. And why don't we treat it that way? Why don't we treat it with an equal application of the standard? I think people would be much more open to a lot of things if they could see a consistency, because I think people are grasping for a consistency in this chaos. And I understand it's not easy to govern, a lot of moving parts, but I find myself in a similar position where I'm going, sure. I mean, look at Europe. The Islamification of Europe is right up in our face. And the Europeans, like I've been saying for 3 years, you people's affection with the royal family is embarrassing. It's absolutely embarrassing. There's only one royal family, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. Any other royal family, any adoration or sort of obsession with any other royal family is heresy. Look at what the Europeans have done. They've already lost their country, continent. Europe has fallen. And there are a few countries in Europe that are trying to pry themselves back from that Islamification. But there is no sane or logical reason you can give me why the Europeans sat by and watched 50 million Muslims pour into their continent. 50 million. 1/10 of the entire European population is Muslim. It's an embarrassment. It's disgraceful. It's disgraceful. Have some pride. Have some pride in your culture, in your heritage, in your way of life, in your basic borders. Have some honor, some pride. What has happened to Europe? So we're watching the reality of Islamification. I'm here in Minneapolis, the belly of the beast, one of the few major cities in the entire country that has the Islamic call to prayer on the loudspeaker in the city ordinance. Nobody can tell me that Islamification isn't a real issue. Of course it's a real issue. The question is to what degree and in what a proximity. Was the threat of Iran imminent? Was it imminent? The American people are right to ask that question. The American people are right to ask themselves, hey, is this the top priority? When John Thune and the rest of the United States Senate that is held by the Republicans won't bring the SAVE Act to a vote so we could have free and fair elections, so we could have secure elections, is this really the priority? And don't tell us, oh, well, we can do both things at the same time. Oh, well, then do it. Then do it then. I'm much less interested in killing the Ayatollah or any of these other, religious leaders than I am arresting the United States Senate. I'm much less interested in killing the Ayatollah or any of these other Islamic extremist leaders in the Middle East. Much less interested in that than I am in arresting the United States Senate on dereliction of duty to secure our elections. I'm much less interested in killing the Ayatollah than I am in arresting United States senators on dereliction of duty charges for not securing our elections. That doesn't mean the Ayatollah is a good person. Doesn't mean I'm a fan. I'm not. I'm diametrically opposed to him, but we have to talk about priorities. The only way Islam takes over, controls, and dominates America is not by mass migration. It's not by overwhelming us physically, like they have a strategic advantage there in the Middle East. It's by political implosion, political apathy, a breakdown of the political process, insecure elections, unsecured elections. That's the only way Islam takes over here in this country. Ideological subversion, political implosion. Those should be our priorities. We should have stripped every last public school in this country on day one of the administration as a matter of national security. We should have stripped every public education institution in this country of all of its anti-American, anti-Christian, anti-human rhetoric. Every last one of them. Because our children are the future. And in order to win a war, a long-term war with the Chinese Communist Party, our children, the next generation, has to be imbued with a sense of sacred honor and national honor. That's not negotiable. Let's talk about national security. That's not negotiable for our national security, for our vital national interest. The security of our elections is not negotiable for our vital national security, our national interest. When we decide to kill an Ayatollah Khomeini, that's negotiable. You know, that can come up to a vote, a question of when and where, at what time. Honestly, I'm just being honest with you. I'm just being honest with everybody. I know that might not be popular in the MAGA movement. Everybody's in the streets, even in Iran. There are people in the streets. There are also some people who are in the streets who oppose what we did. But, you know, that's going to happen. I take all of that with a grain of salt. Sure, there are a bunch of Iranians who have fled, you know, a theocratic Iranian regime who is tyrannical and brutal. And we can never accept Sharia law in this country. But my question is, how close are we to accepting Sharia law by political fiat? Again, I'm in Minneapolis. Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, who openly says we shouldn't have a border. And she doesn't believe we should have a border. She doesn't believe we should have voter ID. We should have secure elections. I wonder why. They have voter ID there in Somalia, in our home country. Why don't we deserve secure elections here? Because people view America as their bitch. They're leeching on us. They're parasitical. They're using us for their own means. They're using our taxpayers, our people. They're using our land and our natural resources. They're using our military prowess in some sense. People are using this country. And we're just like, you know, Bill Withers. You just keep on using me until you use me up. That's a great song, by the way. Shout out to the great Bill Withers, one of the real, you know, American staples of music. I don't know what my life would be without some Bill Withers, but you know, the point is we're getting used. We're getting used at every angle, and I think President Trump's trying to stop that. But we come to a referendum point where, again, let me say it to you, evangelical Christians, you Christian Zionists, you have to take a step back and look in the mirror and ask yourself, why is Israel's politics more important than our own? Why are Israel's politics more important than our own? And don't tell me they're not, because the Republican-held United States Senate refuses to bring the SAVE Act to a vote to secure our elections. And that should be fundamental, top priority on your priority list. The fact that it's not, and we have energy or resources or time or political capital to spend on some war a world away again, people are right to question that. People are right to say, oh, I don't know. I don't know. I just don't think. And we're burning daylight. Remember, we're March. In November, we're going to have an election. November. We're about 6 months out, 5 to 6 months out. You include the primaries, who are the primaries, which are equally implicated in the lack of security in our elections. Remember, Eric Weinstein says the primaries are used to prune the primaries. I'm sorry. Eric Weinstein says the primaries are used to prune the political parties of their populist candidates. So the primaries are just as much lacking security as the general elections. If you think about the motivation to cheat, the motivation to cheat in the primary is even higher in some sense. Because the last thing you would want is to get two populist candidates on the general ticket. You'll take one if necessary, and then you may cheat the one populist candidate like a President Trump and how they did in 2020. But the real goal is to get two candidates who aren't populist battling each other in the general election, so no matter who wins, the same interest is served. On our side of the aisle, you could call it nationalist candidates. Or some strange convergence in between the nationalist populist candidates. The primaries are intended to prune the political parties of their nationalist populist candidates. We're burning too much daylight, and everybody knows it. It's the elephant in the room. Everybody knows it. And even more scary, I think, if President Trump is strategically waiting to drop the hammer on election security, I'm not sure if the Christians in this country have the stomach to watch that type of action be taken. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if Christians in this country actually have the courage and the sense of crisis to be able to watch that type of action be taken. I think we talk about, I think we do a lot of talking in this country. You know, when you stop being a manufacturing superpower, you stop building things, you start becoming a service-based economy. You know, we have a service-based economy, a financialized economy. You have a lot of opinions and pundits and commentators. People do a lot of talking. In a service-based economy, in a service-based economic culture, people do a lot of talking. They do a lot of opinions and justifications of their opinions through gossip. Really, is what it ends up being. Gossip. Do a lot of gossiping. Do a lot of arguing. Do a lot of opinions. We do a lot of gossiping. There's an entire economy, an entire substrate of our economy that's completely built on people's gravity towards gossip and talk, opinions. Radio, television, The View, reality TV. I mean, it's all just gossip. I saw an ad the other day for Love and Hip Hop is coming back, and I'm just thinking, I'm listening to it, and I'm thinking to myself, who the fuck watches this stuff? Honestly, who watches this stuff? Who watches 7 or 8 grown adults participate in a staged reality TV show setting where it's pretending like it's real, but we all know it's scripted and it's staged. But yet the drama is as obnoxious as any real drama we could possibly write up. It's obnoxious because there's a sort of real element to it. I mean, how reality TV works is they get everybody in one spot at a set time and a set place, and they try and push the pieces and encourage the people to watch the fireworks go off. It's kind of a sick and twisted thing. It's diametrically opposed from the meritocracy and mastery and skill of American professional sports, the Jack Hugheses of the world. That's genuine reality TV. Juxtaposed to Love and Hip Hop. And I don't mean just Love and Hip Hop. It's the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, and there's no real racial line, although I hate to see black people depicted so ghetto like they are on Love and Hip Hop, and we don't seem to have a problem with that. But again, Cardi B's on stage, and excuse my language, I'm trying to do a better job of not using as much profanity, but for lack of a better way to put it, Cardi B's on stage, rubbing her vagina, masturbating on stage or simulating her masturbating on stage, and we'll give her Woman of the Year and pretend like she's a good role model for our young women. Her political opinion has weight in American culture. I mean, are you kidding me? People are so interested in her love affair with Stefan Diggs, NFL wide receiver Stefan Diggs, and their in their baby drama or whatever the case may be. Who knows? I don't even paying close attention. I just see the headlines pop up from other people who I know personally who seem to be interested in that type of shit. And it's an embarrassing and shameful thing for me to witness. It's so stunningly superficial, it's almost embarrassing to watch, just to witness. But a woman who bragged about drugging and having sex with and robbing men in her nightlife era is given Woman of the Year. She's propped up as an idol in the black community. It's black excellence. If they give you a little bit of money, a little bit of fame, a little bit of notoriety, a little bit of a platform and audience, you're successful. No matter how decadent, no matter how detrimental you are to the culture, no matter how detrimental you are to your own people or your own community. That's the crisis of this country. I use that as an example because I honestly wake up sometimes and I look and I go, what are people even doing? What are you all doing? I don't know. Maybe, hey, and fine, you get the government you deserve, but then let's not pretend that we have these deeply rooted opinions on Israel and Iran. I mean, you don't even have deeply rooted opinions on the politics in your own backyard. You don't even know who your county commissioner is. I'm just being real with you. You know who the Ayatollah is. You know who Bibi Netanyahu is. You don't even know who your local county commissioner is. Tell me I'm lying. We have to reorient our culture and our politics to that which is most local to us. That which is most local is the proper orientation of Christians' order of charity, the order of family, the natural order, the order of faith. That which is most local to me. That is the best that is the best justification for the America First policy approach. Is the orientation of Christian charity is that which is most local to me. The great St. Thomas Aquinas said that man can have peace when he submits his reasons to his passion and his passion to God. St. Thomas Aquinas said that man can have peace when he submits his passion to his reason and his reason to God. Then he can start to have peace within himself, which allows him to start to build peace with others. The orientation of Christian theology is that which is most local to me. That is the Christian justification. That is the scripture justification of an America First policy approach, which, by the way, also includes Israel. and we can love Israel. We can hold Israel in a high regard as the scripture does. There's a special place in God's heart for Israel. There's no doubt about it. Even in the end, the Jews have to come back into the in order for us to have. So we understand, even ex post facto, even after the crucifixion of Christ, if you get to Revelations, you find that the Jews have to come back home, essentially. And that's the belief. That's fine. There's no problem with loving Israel. There's no problem with loving the Jews and holding them in a special place. There is a problem if it disorients your order of charity, of faith, of family, of politics. No way another country's politics should be more important than your own country's, ever. It's a disorientation of charity, a disorientation in the order of charity, family, and faith. Was the threat in Iran imminent? No. Are we going to lose sleep? That the Ayatollah is dead? No, not at all. Is this war coming to a close anytime soon? Doesn't look like it. But we plan for the worst and hope for the best. Regardless of what's going on in the Middle East, do not be distracted that our elections in America are still not secure. And we don't quite know what to do about that. I get the sense that, and I know this from my own personal life, and I watch people in my own personal life and the way that they move and the way that they handle certain situations, certain controversies, and I watch it as a coach. When a person, or in a coaching context, a player finds themselves at a moment of controversy that they don't quite know how to deal with, they'll often displace their frustration onto something else, or they'll completely ignore the thing that they need to deal with. Let's say, for example, a guy isn't good with his left hand. He'll just try and avoid all the places or scenarios on the court where he has to use that left hand instead of doing the hard work to improve his left hand so it's no longer a weakness. We do the same thing culturally, psychologically, spiritually. But really, we do it culturally and psychologically in this sense. We all know we do it politically. Oh, we really do it politically. I'm sorry. I want to amend that. The political scapegoating is probably the number one scapegoating that we do in American culture. Political scapegoating, for sure. Top of the list. We all know that the elections aren't secure. Nobody quite knows what to do about that, so we want to ignore it. We'll find every other reason, every other thing to focus on except that which is most important, that which is most local, and that which we feel the least empowered to change. That which is most important, that which is most local, and that which we feel least empowered to change. We avoid the security of elections. Now we're off into a war 6 months before the most important election in the history of human civilization. 2026 midterms are going to be the most important elections in the history of human civilization. Republican-held Senate won't even bring the SAVE Act to a vote. And somehow John Cornyn gets an endorsement. I mean, self-inflicting wounds we're suffering right now. With all due respect to the president, and I support him, and I still support him. I'm not throwing away my MAGA hat, and he could not endorse me if that's his prerogative for whatever set of reasons. And I still understand that he was touched by God, has a divine appointment, and that the fundamentals of the movement and the ideas hold true. Even if Lindsey Graham and John Cornyn are backstabbing traitors to that very movement and those ideas, the ideas still hold true. And if we're not going to anchor ourselves around ideas, around values, around beliefs, then what's the point in fighting? What are we fighting for? Everybody just take their ball and go home. It's not what we're doing here. We believe in something. You believe in something. I believe in something. President Trump believes in something. He needs encouragement. He needs motivation. He needs support. And all of us make these mistakes sometimes. We listen to the wrong people. There's no way John Cornyn should be endorsed. No way. There's no way Lindsey Graham should be endorsed. No way. Absolutely no way. I hope it's been informative tonight. It's been another episode of Please Call Me Crazy, brought to you by Free People Radio, powered by our favorite sponsor, TireGet.com. That's TireGet.com. You have to buy tires from somebody. You might as well buy them from us. Help fund the movement. Help support the movement. We believe in the freedom of movement, and that's exactly what the establishment wants to take from you now. I'm your host, Royce White, here in the belly of the beast, Minneapolis, Minnesota. This was episode number 310. We'll see you tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central, Free People Radio, on all social media platforms, including YouTube and Rumble, for our daily drive time call-in live stream. And we invite everybody from the Please Call Me Crazy audience, please, if you're up in the morning and you're driving around from the 7 to 9 a.m. Central hour, call in. We want to hear from you. It's your chance to interact with me. And we will be moving the call-in show to a Sunday. In fact, I might do the first White House call-in show this Sunday after I do Alex Jones from 6 to 8 p.m. Central. We'll see how the week plays out. But tentatively, we will have a 1 hour to 1.5 hour call-in show after the 6 to 8 p.m. Central Alex Jones Sunday Night InfoWars that I guest host this Sunday. So you'll be able to call in, for that as well. Now, that will be streaming on another platform, Free People Radio YouTube channel, and obviously all the associated Free People Radio social media accounts. But, it's just one click away. One click away. Please Call Me Crazy. We want to keep as the podcast where we do the Monday, Wednesday, Friday, deep dive, review of the news and some reaction videos, and then our guest. And we want to maintain Please Call Me Crazy as a more long-form guest interview type of platform, as well as some of these deep dives like I did here tonight. The Daily Show is, it's a daily show. It's in the morning. It's drive time. It's get up and we're into the hustle and bustle of American life. Still, Real America's Voice, Saturday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern. I've been doing Alex Jones lately, hosting 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Central, which has been a blast, an honor, a real honor, because Alex Jones has been a truth teller for a long, long time. So we're a little bit of everywhere right now. Stay tuned. We appreciate your viewership and listenership today and in the future. Over the last couple of years, we're back in the swing of things. But Please Call Me Crazy. We'll be back Wednesday evening. We may have an interview that we have in the can, or we may do some reaction and news depending on how the next couple of days unfold, everything that's going on with these global headlines. And we may get a referendum on Speaker Majority Leader Thune here from the Senate if he doesn't pass the SAVE Act, and we'd have to go to cover that immediately for one of these episodes if it happens in the next couple of days, and what the implications are of that. Again, I don't think that I don't see a viable replacement. I don't even see I don't see a replacement for him that I really trust. I'm just going to be honest. Maybe Tupper. I don't know. I don't even know who. There's only a handful of America First senators in the entire United States Senate. The entire United States Senate. There's only a handful of America First United States senators. So who becomes the majority leader if John Thune gets the axe? I don't know. Going to be interesting. But I know one thing: the mandate will be to bring the SAVE Act, and you have to ask yourself, if John Thune couldn't bring the SAVE Act, why would the next majority leader be able to? Other than John Thune basically gave the middle finger to the American people and said, securing your elections isn't the top priority. What an indictment. What a grave indictment of him. What a grave indictment of the Republican caucus to select him as the majority leader in the first place. But we'll talk about all of that in the days to come. So God bless you all. God bless America. Godspeed. God bless the president. God bless the families of the 3 service members that we lost in this war that's breaking out with Iran. You got to remember that these wars do have a real cost, and it probably won't be the last service member that we lose. But we want to pray a hedge of protection over all of our service members, all of our men and women who are in the line of fire, in the line of duty. Let's pray for a quick resolution, a quick end to a war that could easily spiral out of control and could ignite, a full-blown kinetic war with the entire Iron Triangle. Russia's still at war with Ukraine, so they're in. Iran is now in, and they don't appear to be backing off, although it wouldn't surprise me to see the Iranians back down. We've watched them back down before. So, again, they're writing checks that I don't think they can really cash without the help of the Chinese and North Korea and Russia. And as it stands right now, the Chinese and the North Koreans look very hesitant to get involved in the kinetic aspect of this war. So the Iranians find themselves out there over their skis. We'll see how it all shakes out. Been another great evening. I appreciate you guys. We'll see you tomorrow morning. And other than that, we'll see you again Wednesday night. Thank you. Everything's up on the bar. We're all in. We get to decide. Do you want to live on your knees, or do you want to die on your feet fighting? That's the decision you get to make now.